Hello, Fantasy Golf fans, and welcome to the Fantasy Golf Insider Webcast and Podcast. I'm Jeff Bergerson. My screen name is JT Bergerson, joined as always by my partner, Zach Turcotte. His screen name is Mysteriously. He's atop the leaderboard on DraftKings after day 2 and day 3. Not so much after day 4.
You calling me Henrik Stenson over here?
The Henrik Stenson of DFS.
Call me Sergio Stenson. We'll just put them all together.
We're with FantasyGolfInsider.com, where you should become a premium member right now. Get access to some of the best information available, make you a profitable fantasy golf and DFS player.
Coming up on the Masters, they got
Masters,
start the
2 weeks away.
Now. We're going to start putting out content for it this week.
Yep.
So
I got tournament history up on the website. Be sure to start preparing. DraftKings has their salaries out, at least the initial ones. I'm sure they'll make an addition with other players.
Yep.
Start doing your research, and all of that is for $12 a month. So it's a screaming deal.
Get on top of it ahead of time. Yep.
This broadcast is also available in podcast form on iTunes. Be sure to give us a 5-star review. As far as this video goes, you can subscribe to our videos and make sure that you get the webcast delivered to you every week right away.
Push the thumbs up button.
Yes.
Next to the podcast.
Oh yeah, the thumbs up button
for the webcast, and make sure you give the 5-star review also for iTunes every week. We want to make sure that we're at least keeping up with all of our rivals out there. So yeah, be sure to hook us up.
Before we recap the Puerto Rico and the WGC match play, congratulations goes out to a couple Fantasy Golf Insider members this week. Bill Armstrong emailed me letting me know that for the second straight week he cashed in on some Millie Maker tickets, which is great. The Stool Pigeons actually took third in the $300 3-wood on DK this week for a cool $7K. Yeah. So that's a nice win.
Thanks for bumping me back a little bit.
Cost you some cash. And Jeff Townsend let us know that he had another winning week with the optimal lineup. So he was pretty happy with that.
The optimal lineup was back in the mix again this week. I thought when Bill McGirt took it in the shorts on Friday afternoon that
start good.
It wasn't going to be real positive, but the rest of the team hung on. We had a few guys that were up near the top, so I was able to carry the team back to victory, which was great because I was a little bit nervous going into Puerto Rico. I had really no idea going in what was going to happen.
Well, let's talk about Puerto Rico. We were kind of hesitant because our confidence level wasn't really high, but it turned out we did extraordinary with the picks. Roger killed it in his article.
It will end up being my best week of the year.
Yeah.
I was
no, let's hope it's not.
Well,
we can always do better.
Well, if I get a perfect week.
Yeah,
maybe. But I had 16 of 18 of my picks through the cut, which was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was in position to win all over the place in the 300, in the 27, in the $3. I was leading at certain points in the $300 on Saturday and even on Sunday for a few moments. I got on an airplane leaving from California back home to Minnesota. I knew it was going to be rough needing Ian Poulter to pull out a win. And then, of course, the whole world owned Tony Finau.
Yeah.
And naturally, he ended up being 30% owned and coming through with the victory. So that did hurt quite a bit. But what can you do? I had 2 6-6 teams through in the 300. Both were in the top 10 at different points.
I know.
All you can do is put yourself in a position to win on Sundays.
You and Tommy G, who is obviously a subscriber of ours and a fan of ours, I saw both you guys up in the top 5 for a very good share of the weekend.
From Friday all the way to Sunday.
For Sunday, yeah.
And it was all because we couldn't get anything out of Poulter at all on Sunday. He was a guy I rolled in at the last minute. I knew he'd be the low-owned guy, and he was only a 5% owned. I mean, he's probably the highest-ranked player overall on that field. And it worked out, and he was in the lead, and then at the end he just couldn't do anything for us. But overall, still a pretty good week. The frustrating part with PGA golf, and it's like I was talking to Tommy about after the tournament ended, is that it feels like even on weeks when I win, sometimes I end up pissed.
Unless you would take home the big prize, you're just never going to be happy.
Because it's so awful when you get a taste of it, and you're seeing the green go way into the 5 figures of green, and then way back down again. It just real big swings there. But the picks were fantastic. I mean, we were all over the top of the board.
Yeah, and here's what I'm going to say about Finau is we were right on saying that he is going to be one of the highest owned guys. And he was in the $300, he was 30%, in the $3, I want to say he was 20%.
Yeah, he was a little over 20. And
look, there's only a couple of spots that he could have really killed us And he ended up there, but how often does that happen? So I'm going to make that play every single time. I'm going to fade the guy who's owned by 30%.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the smart play, because it wasn't as if this guy was coming in to this tournament where he had 4 or 5 years of just top 5 finishes in this event. No. And it wasn't like his form was just phenomenal. He had made the cut just barely the week before and then shined over the weekend.
He's a highly combustible player too.
Very volatile. So if you get when you get a chance to have a guy like that owned by 30% of the field, and you can fade him and find somebody else to go in there, take the other guy. It's just it's going to be the smart play. It's going to make you more money throughout the season.
It will.
It didn't work this week, but that's okay, because people will continue to make that play.
It's the process, it's not the result necessarily.
People are going to continue to make that play where they dive on the phenoms of the week. And if you've got enough discipline to stay away from those guys and pivot to other guys who have the same amount of upside with lower levels of ownership, you're going to be really happy and probably a lot more profitable.
So that was the Puerto Rico. You want to touch on WGC a little bit? Obviously, the biggest names in the world were there. Yeah. Jason Day overcame a back problem that supposedly he almost withdrew with the back issue.
He's a fragile little guy.
He is. There's always something with him, a sickness or a back or vertigo or whatever. Mm-hmm. Speaking of fragile little guys, Paul Casey.
You want to get Paul this Casey, guy out right
Sure,
here?
I'll get this. Paul Casey, look, I understand that you couldn't have won. You couldn't have advanced out of the pool. But look, you're making millions of dollars. You have fans. I'm not one of them, but you do have some fans, I would imagine, who come out to watch you play. They want to see Jason Day play a full round. Look, suck it up and play some golf. Finish out your round. It's not digging ditches. You're playing golf. I don't know what, your toenail hurt you or something. Stick it out. Don't be a baby.
I'm sure much like right after Deutsche Bank, he bounced right back and played BMW, and I'm sure he'll be ready to go in Augusta next week.
Look, I get it. And I have a grudge, obviously, against Paul Casey, but I have a grudge against guys who just can't go out and do their job.
And just kick it in. And there were a few guys that did that.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they withdraw because they didn't have a chance. And I totally get it, but I just finish your round of golf and go on your way and collect your paycheck, because you got paid anyway. So.
Yeah, at least, what, 50 grand?
Yeah, I think that was the minimum for showing up, and he couldn't get more than 6 holes in. So screw you, Paul Casey. Anyway, shot of the week, Zachary. You want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's not going to be from a particular hole, but it goes back to the Puerto Rico Open. There were a number of players who blew up at various points of the weekend. And we had a few different people nominate a couple of different names, but it hit me this afternoon as I was thinking about it, that one player in particular really did go out of his way to earn that. And that player is George McNeil. George McNeil, the first couple days, I didn't write him up. I didn't pick him. I was a little remorseful about that. You could see, not last week, because the week before he kind of blew up, but a couple weeks, he had a couple good rounds. This is an event he has always done particularly well in. And so sure enough, on Thursday and Friday, he shoots to the top of the leaderboard. At various points, he's right around minus 10. I mean, at minus 12 was the winning score. So minus 10 day 2, you were right there in the mix.
Yeah.
Obviously makes the cut. And then Saturday, I wasn't even really thinking about it, but I didn't see his name anywhere on the scorecard. And then towards the end of the day, I saw, oh, wow. So he had been minus 8 going into day 3. And he finished minus 3 after day 3. So it was plus 5 in the third round. And that's not the shot of the week. So that's bad. If you're a George McNeil owner, you were probably at the top of whatever tournament you were in at some point starting Saturday. And then by the end of the day, you're pretty much out of it. If you have a guy who goes from first to almost middle, bottom-ish of the pack, you're in trouble. That's not good for your team.
Right.
So then I see a little headline pop up on Twitter. George McNeil disqualified for use of non-conforming club. I don't know if he actually had a club in there made out of wood, or if the thing was, maybe it weighed like 3 ounces too much. And I don't even know who spots this kind of thing.
I don't either.
Is this one of those things where the guy just sort of self-reports? Like, you know what? I brought a club out there that, just it weighed too much. It didn't weigh enough. It was made out of secretive material that is not authorized. I mean, because I can't imagine somebody who's walking up with his caddy's walking away after the round is over, and some clown from the PGA just looking 300 feet away.
That's not conforming.
That club right there, I mean, it's almost like baseball when you see him, when the manager kind of calls out the guy on the mound or calls out a guy for pine tar on the bat. Right. You're like, there's no way he just saw that. So I have no idea how this possibly could happen, but he got disqualified. So not only did your team go from having a guy in first to near the middle of the bottom, he doesn't even get to finish the last round. So he's basically the one guy who got MDF'd on Saturday and only got to play 3 rounds. And so if you ended up paying over $10,000 for him, it actually ended up
you're dead,
crippling your team. So George McNeil, you continue to have a great season. Your shot goes out to you,
Here's
buddy.
to non-conforming clubs.
Nice. That wake you up?
Yeah, I'm awake now. Shot of the week is brought to you by SwanniesFootwear.com, where you should go check out their soft spike sandals and great apparel at SwanniesFootwear.com. Be sure to use promo code FANTASYGOLF and get 20% off your order. Wacky Wagers, Zachary, how'd you do last week?
Another crushing victory this week. Took out good buddy of the site, Bo Burnham. He's a guy who likes to chat each week about the picks.
Yep.
And I got 6 of 6 through one of my many 6 of 6 squads. He had a couple errors in there, a couple guys who ended up missing the cut for him. So that hurt him, and he was never really too competitive after Friday. And for my victory, I'll be getting a gift set from Maker's Mark with all kinds of little trinkets that should hopefully make drinking whiskey an even better experience. That's possible. So I'm excited about that. That's another one of those good prizes. And this week we got a big one coming up.
Okay, what do you got?
The DFS Degenerates guys.
Yeah.
All 3 have challenged me this week. A couple of them put up golf clubs, so that's great. We got a driver and a putter on there. And then what I'm going to say, since it's number 9 from Notre Dame, it must be a Tony Rice 1988 replica national championship jersey.
Wow.
And I loved Notre Dame back then.
You did. Now you hate them.
Now I hate them.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So
I hated them back then, and I kind of like them now. But
bullshit, you like them now. What is it you could possibly like about them now? That doesn't make any sense. You just love that.
I used to hate them.
I know you wagered against them. I remember remember 93 when you had all the money on Florida State against them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, I lost that one, but I won the one against Boston College, though. I won some money on that game. That was a good one. Those were some good days of college football right there.
Yeah, the golden days.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. So if you have any wacky wagers to take on Zachary, be sure to tweet us a picture of what you want to put up against our swag, and Zach will happily take you on.
We need something good for Masters Week. I'm not going to take any bullshit for Masters Week.
It's got to be good.
Don't put up any trash for Masters Week. Bring the energy next week. I need something good to play for. I'm going to be there, so I need something to be actively rooting for down the stretch on Sunday afternoon after my Millionaire Maker teams are all wiped out. I want to be...
if it's something really good, we could do like a hoodie or something. We could put up some good stuff.
We could put something legitimate up then.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So on to this week. This event is the Shell Houston Open leading into the Masters. And rightfully so, because it kind of sets up like Augusta. There's a lot of comparisons, although just 2 winners have placed in the top 15 in the Masters since it became the lead-in event. So I thought that was kind of interesting because you always hear players say, the course, kind of reminds me of Augusta.
And it psyched everybody out last year. I remember J.B. Holmes came down. He was playing well. He had the 2nd place finish at Doral. He came in. Boom, he wins the Shell.
Yep.
On to Augusta, where the whole world owns him, and he completely blows up. And
that's correct.
Yeah, and that last year, the same thing happened to Jimmy Walker. He wins at Valero. He comes in, some kind of weird wrist injury, and then he doesn't do anything. So, yeah, it has been interesting that this one hasn't really translated from guy does well this week and then on to doing something even better week after. There's only a couple real notable exceptions that I can see when doing my research today.
It's at the Golf Club of Houston, 7,441 yards, par 72. It's a Reese Jones design with David Toms Consulting. So that's huge.
Wow.
Key stats this week: strokes gained, tee to green, par 4, par 5 scoring, strokes gained putting, birdies are better. And I looked at greens in regulation. It's not a stat that I often reference in, but if you look
it's really being panned by a lot of the big
Oh, I know,
guys
yeah.
that are out there
You
right
can't
now.
possibly use greens in regulation.
Don't
well,
look at it anymore.
Here's the thing. The greens here are easy to hit, okay? But everyone who I look at who has success here does very well in greens in regulation. So either that means that people who are doing well in greens do well, or people who are not hitting greens at the time really fall off and do bad. So either way, I would look at the top of the greens and reg stats and the bottom.
Maybe mix in a little bit of proximity.
Yeah, proximity too.
They're so easy to hit.
Yep.
You want some proximity for guys who are getting close.
Yes, sir. So that's all that you need to know about the Golf Club of Houston. Zachary, you want to talk about some DraftKings picks this week?
I do. Well, starting at the top, I think we've probably got a pretty clear fade on this. Is probably gonna spur him on to win now. But then looking at the pricing, I think the pricing here is pretty manageable this week. You know, when I looked at it, the guys that we've been going to as scrubs the last few weeks seem like they got way cheaper again this week.
They did.
Which is crazy because most of them did well last week. So I'm really kind of shocked to see my favorite guys that I had just a week ago at Puerto Rico who have been really good cut makers this season and who have had a okay amount of upside, actually seen their prices fall not to the low sixes, but into the mid to low 5,000 range. So you're gonna have a ton of room this week to do a lot of things and be really creative with your lineups. And I think the approach this week has got to be at least a mixture of stars and scrubs. Now maybe that doesn't mean you go all three guys in the scrub range, because when I look at the middle price range, there are some pretty intriguing plays.
Oh yeah,
in that 7,000, in that 8,000 range. But if you mix one real big scrub into your lineup, or even two, you're going to have a ton of room at the top to put in just about anybody that you want at the top of the lineup.
So who do you want near the top? Who's the guy or two that you're targeting in that upper range?
It's tricky. I mean, I want to look more at Spieth. I'm not a big fan of 12-9. I feel like they almost said, let's just bump them up like an extra 1,000. Because when I started making lineups and I would use those two scrubs to start out with, I'd start putting in a few stars, and I'd have 12,000 for my last player, which you've got Ricky Fowler at 11,000. You got Spieth at 12.9. It's such an enormous disparity right there that I would get a little bit frustrated. I probably won't use a lot of Spieth for this event. I hate paying up for that top guy.
Yeah, especially one who's in such bad form right now.
His form has just been okay. It might be an okay contrarian play. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people who are owning him this week.
What do you think? What's your prediction on ownership?
I think maybe 10%.
Oh, you think that low?
10 to 12
I said,
range.
16 to
there's
17.
There's so many guys here at the top that are quality players, though, that I just don't know that there's going to be that many guys that are going to be jumping on Spieth.
I think a lot of the focus is actually going to be on Phil Mickelson this week.
I would agree with that.
I think he's going to probably be the highest owned in that upper tier because he's 10-5, which is a significant savings. Awesome tournament history, good current form, always popular.
Yeah, I definitely think he's definitely going to be a play. I will probably own some shares of Phil, which is a rarity.
Yeah,
I almost never own him. I've been reluctant this year and held out. But, coming up to Augusta, he's going to want to be ready to go. I mean, Augusta is really the place where he wants to shine every year.
Yep.
And typically, he doesn't use these as just kind of a tune-up just to be ready. He tends to play the week before big events really well.
Yes.
And so I like that, because there's other guys, if you look up here, one above, and you've got DJ. That's a guy right there who may just kick it in.
If he gets behind,
I could very well see him just.
He's done it before here.
Right, yeah. So if he gets out of it at any point, whether it happens day 1, 2, 3, 4, I could easily see him kicking it in the rest of the weekend.
Yep.
T58, something like that. I mean, he's got potential. He's played well here. Once he was a top 5 guy.
Another guy who worries me a bit on that topic is Louis Oosthuizen. Now, he played last week a lot. I mean, he played a lot of golf, and I thought, 36 holes on Sunday. He's scheduled to play here. I was halfway expecting a WD because he's going to want to be sharp for Augusta. I don't know if he's going to hold up.
Yeah,
for 4 rounds.
He's a guy who's in such rough shape. He's got to travel with a bed a lot of the time.
He does. He can barely bend over to
place.
pick up his ball sometimes.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. And so you're gonna get these breakdowns from him where he's in good form and he just kills it. He was at the President's Cup. He was just on fire last year at the U.S. Open and at the Open. He was just amazing. But then he would play the next week and he would miss the cut.
Right.
Yep. And so I think that's a definite chance for him to happen again. And he's missed the cut here over the last couple of seasons. So even though he tends to shine in stronger fields, and this is definitely a stronger field type of event, I think he'll probably be holding something back a little bit for Augusta. Because if he's going to make a showing, probably 2 weeks from now rather than today. So, yeah, I probably won't be in on him next week, especially with the talent that's right there around him.
So if you drop down a level, let's say mid-7s to mid-9s, that range, who's standing out as a solid play in that? Who would you?
I'm going to look at another guy that I also rarely look at that I usually really don't like and that you're usually hearing me cuss out if he's in any kind of position to do any damage on Saturday or Sunday. We're talking about Charlie Hoffman. The guy he is the boom or bust play.
Yep.
He's never going to be on a cash team ever that I make. But he's a guy all of a sudden who will go from playing terrible golf. He'll have 5-6 events in a row where he's really not very competitive. Maybe he makes 2 or 3 of the cuts, misses badly on others. And then all of a sudden you'll see 2 or 3 weeks where he's right up at the top. He's competing. He's in first on Friday. He's in first on Saturday. He's in 17th when he finishes on Sunday, which is good for Charlie. But this is an event where he's been surprisingly consistent over the years. And this tends to be the time of year to own Charlie Hoffman, is in the mid-springtime. And he had a nice run last year at the same time. He did,
same time.
Played really well at Augusta and then kind of disappeared for most of the summer. Really didn't make a lot of noise. And then reemerged at the Deutsche Bank to kind of kick us in the balls a little bit while we were
What was
there.
the look that he gave you at the Deutsche Bank when you were following his group?
We were a rambunctious group.
Yeah.
It was him, and it was Brooks Koepka, and I'm trying to remember who the third was, but we were obviously following Brooks pretty closely.
Yeah.
It was day one, so it was that Thursday.
Yeah.
And we were loud every time.
And we had our Fantasy Golf Insider swag on.
And he got into his cart as soon as we started following him because they had carts to kind of whisk them away to the holes that were further away. And he saw my bright green Fantasy Golf Insider shirt. You could see him kind of cock his head from behind his glasses. And, even Charlie's always got that kind of dead look in his eyes, expression, the serial killer kind of look.
He kind of walks like he's dead too, like Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's too.
And he looks forward and he kind of goes. And then he sort of shook his head and then he was gone. And that was all that we saw of Charlie. And then he would see us every hole standing there, ready to go. And then, of course, if he had a good shot, it was like, fuck that. I don't care. And if Brooks hit a birdie, I mean, we were losing our minds with excitement. So, it was entertaining to see him out there. And hopefully I can catch up with him at Augusta next week and have the same shirt on.
Yeah, I think you should.
This week I'm cheering for you, Charlie. I like you. You're a value at your price. $6,400 is a steal, sir. So this will be a week, I think, where I'll be cheering for Charlie to do pretty well. I can see myself owning a little bit of Charlie there. How about you? Who do you like in that middle range?
Kind of the obvious pick that I think based on tournament history is Cameron Tringali. You look at it, and he has dominated at this course. Now, he went through a stretch a couple of weeks ago where he had missed, I think, 4 out of 5 cuts.
Bad, too. Really bad. And then he finished, 27th last week?
last time out. And so I think he could rebound at an 8,000. I think that's a decent value in that mid-range.
I'm thinking the whole world is probably going to be back on Tony Finau this week.
I'm guessing that would be a popular
He's at 8,100 here, and he made the cut at this event last year. So, again, be careful. At 8,100, that's a pretty nice price for him. You can put him on almost any kind of roster and still have a ton of room for other guys, especially if you put another scrub on there. But again, looking at GPPs this week, I could definitely see him being in that 20 to 25% range with where he's at as far as price and then coming off of a win. So be a little bit cautious if you want to roll him on your rosters. I certainly wouldn't be overweighting him this week.
I like that you mentioned earlier the low 7 range. I think that is chock full of really solid value plays. Guys like Brendan Steele, Patton Kazire, Gary Woodland.
Guys who just can't get a boost in price.
No, but they're cut makers, and at 7,000, I think that's legit.
And looking in that range, I love Patton Kazire this week. I love Patton Kazire. I like him in cash. I like him in GPPs. He's a guy who doesn't have any tournament history here, which is great because that is going to be the number one determinant in terms of what guys are looking at for ownership. And even though there's a huge sector of folks out there that's kind of blaring this message, don't look at tournament history, don't look at tournament history.
It has nothing to do with success at all.
It won't. Well, I think it does have a little bit to do with success, but I think the thing about it is
that's what they're saying.
Right, no indicator of success. That's what they're saying.
None.
But if you're not paying attention to tournament history, you're also going to miss out on who the vast majority of people are going to own.
That is right.
Because people are going to look at tournament history first every single week and see, oh, look at this guy's got 5 top 10s and 14 appearances here. And he won here many years back. It doesn't matter how much we try to dismiss this as touts within the community. That's the first thing that's going to draw attention for folks each week. So, I think with a guy like Kazire who's been playing excellent, he's been playing really well, hasn't had any big breakthrough finishes since he first started back in the fall. But the finishes have been consistent. They've been pretty decent. And he's a scorer. He's a guy who can put up a lot of birdies when he gets rolling.
And there will be a lot of birdies on this course. I mean, the winning score will probably might be close to 20 under par, somewhere between 15 and 20. That's the track record.
So at 7,400 right there this week, I think that's a great price. So I probably will probably load up on Kazire in that mid-range.
So let's drop down. Let's give 2 sleepers this week. All right? And the rest you can put in your column. Let's pick out a couple of guys under the, 6,500
Yeah, let's go
range.
Let's go low. There are a lot of guys in that low range. Most of these guys all did really well last week, so I was surprised to see their price drop. Now, I know the field is much stronger.
Obviously.
But even in fields that have been stronger, the prices on that lower range of guys has not usually stretched this low. Typically, it cuts off at right around 6,000 or 5,500, and there's really only just garbage that's been in that range. This week we get garbage plus. We get a little more than just garbage. So I'm pretty excited to see down there, and one of the guys that we've been going to quite a bit this season is Mark Hubbard. Has just been making cuts. He had a real nice finish this last week. I think he finished -8. So I think he was in the top 10? Ended up finishing, I think, in the top 10 this past weekend down in Puerto Rico, which for him is fantastic. He was 6,200 or something like that last week. He's down to 5,400 this week, and he's only missed, I think, 1 or 2 cuts all season long. So I just think there's a ton of value there in starting a team with a guy who's at such a high upside in terms of making the cut. Probably isn't gonna blow away the field once he makes it to Saturday. But you know what? For 5,400, I'll take a 54th place finish.
Yeah, I think it's worth addressing. A lot is going to depend on field size too. So if you're looking at like a 70,000 player field or 100,000, 200,000 player field,
then you probably have to be a little.
You got to have more upside, I would say.
Maybe.
But if you're playing in
the 300,
if you're playing in the 300 with several hundred players in the field, or even 1,000 or 2,000 player fields, I think it's reasonable to get a guy at 5,100 just to make the cut, so you can load up on the top end. Now, if we're talking Millie Maker, and there aren't many scrubs in the Masters, and we'll talk about that next week, but I think you need to shoot for someone with more upside than a Mark Hubbard, and the guy who you had on your roster last week, Tyrone, who didn't help you once he got through the cut, obviously.
No, made a nice eagle on Sunday. That helped out
helped.
At the end. But he sort of slid back from after Thursday each day, just dropped a little bit.
And he's 5,100 this week. So.
And he's a guy, and he's another guy who I think that's a reasonable play. I mean, if you wanted to, and he's missed two cuts this year, 3.
I know.
So if you started your roster with like a Tyrone Van Aswagen and Mark Hubbard, you've got everything up on the top. You can throw in 4 guys who are going to be phenomenal.
Who can win the tournament?
And you are going to see that play made by a lot of big players this week. There's going to be a lot of guys. I'll call them the math guys who run their models, run their algorithms. They're just going to look at guys who can make the cut at the bottom, and then they're just going to load up at the top.
Yep.
So you're going to see a guy like Sahil, formerly the player formerly known as Max Dollery. Start calling him that instead. He's going to pick one or two of those guys. He will own 100% of them. He'll probably own 100% of one of them. And then he'll own 40 or 50% of two or three of the other guys.
Every week, week in and week out, we see that same formula.
And then he'll load up at the top. And it'll be boom or bust. If those bottom guys make it, boom. If they bust, well, they're not gonna do so well. But that's the risk, and that's what you really should be looking for a lot of times.
In GPPs,
play. Yeah. So definitely something to...
Are you telling me Max knows what he's doing in GPP formats and DFS?
Most of the time, it seems like he's
kind of onto something.
Seems like he's onto something a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I'll give him a little credit, right?
Yeah, I think he's a decent DFS player.
7-8 figures rich on it. Yeah, he does all right. He's a decent one to emulate. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, anything else that you want to touch on for the Shell Houston Open?
No, man, I'm just ready for Augusta.
Yeah.
Let's get to
so
Augusta.
when do you leave for Augusta? We'll talk about it next week, but when do you take off?
I'm leaving Wednesday morning.
Okay, all right.
So,
you're going to be there for round 1.
Round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4.
That should be fun.
I think it will be. It'll definitely.
And you can text me from there.
yeah.
I'll
text you as I'm being escorted off the course. Right. Yeah. No, but I'm excited. I've been chatting away with the tour junkies. They actually live down in Augusta. If there's another podcast to check out before Masters Week, they did a really cool Masters preview where they talked about. Not just DFS stuff, but their experiences. I know at least one of them was a caddy out there for a while, and then they talked about all the different experiences over the years of being out there, things they had seen, things that you could check out, different types of etiquette. Apparently, you can just put a chair down. When you get there in the morning, you can put your chair down on the 18th hole and leave it there, and nobody will touch it.
Wow.
Nobody will touch it. You can just sit it there all day long and come back when you're ready to. Nobody will touch it.
Wow.
And that's pretty amazing. I think if we would have tried to do that at Whistling Straits,
it would have been beaten over. And
they would have just kicked it. Yes, some idiot working for the PGA as a volunteer with his little black marker would have just picked it up and strutted away and tossed it like the asshole that he is. So... Yeah, you don't see that, but apparently everybody is on their best behavior, so I will try to be on mine.
How are you going to be on good behavior? That's what I want to know.
I don't know, because I think beers are only 3. They said beers, and then they weren't allowed to say the name. They don't actually advertise the names of the beers there.
Just
you can
beer?
either get domestic or import.
Oh, okay.
They're only $3. $3, and people still aren't getting.
You're going to get out of hand. You're not going to last the day. When guys start on your roster, and your Millie Maker roster start blowing up, you're going to blow up. You're going to have too many $3 beers.
I'm just going to go rolling down the hill.
They're going to boot your ass out of there.
Right. Yeah. See me in my green man suit running around Amen Corner. It'll be a blast. If I get thrown out, I'll do it in style.
Yeah, you do that. So that's going to do it for us this week. Be sure to email us with any questions on strategy or anything else at info@fantasygolfinsider.com or shoot us a tweet @fantasygolfers. We're always happy to help you guys. Anything else, Zachary?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. Best of luck with the Shell Houston Open this week, and we'll be seeing you next week for Masters Week.
Good luck.